Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and start us in our meditation tonight. My name is Mary Hunt. I'm co-director with Diane New, who's also here, of Water. And we welcome you to the February 2026 Water Meditation, which will be led by our colleague, Rosemary B. Ganley. Thanks, Diane, for doing the backup IT tonight. Last month, we heard Virginia Day on the nature of buttons. And unless you've had some very serious memory loss since then, you remember very fondly the unforgettable description of buttons from the beautiful heart-shaped collection of buttons which graced our screen, and the insightful and heartfelt reflections that the simple button called from each of us. You can find the audio and the notes on our website under Water Programs and then Meditations, and then under Virginia Day. Virginia, thank you. You made the buttons an integral part of our spirituality. Am I right? People who were there, I mean,
Yeah,
it was
thank
a
you.
really a memorable night. And I can happily say that the buttons returned in one piece to their owner. So
Safely. And
thank
so I can use it again creatively somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, we're all going to be doing the button meditation. It was really,
They
let
did,
us turn then
they
this
did
evening.
grace the water office for several days, and it
Oh,
was just so beautiful to have them there. So thank you for continuing that wonderful meditation before
mhm.
they came back to you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It was a wonderful meditation, as this evening's meditation will be as well. Let me turn to our land acknowledgement, something that we have incorporated into our programs to remind ourselves at Water of why we do what we do and what we need to do more of given the systemic injustices Indigenous and other people of color face in this country. A land acknowledgement is a beginning, not an end. We here at Water are on Indigenous land in Silver Spring, Maryland, the traditional and contemporary land of the Piscataway and Anacostan peoples. We acknowledge the trauma and the injustice toward Indigenous people that is deep in U.S. culture and history. We join in efforts to eradicate it and to make reparations for the genocide involved. Water's work is aimed at bringing about social justice at every turn. So please consider for a moment the Native people on whose land you sit. And please feel free to list them in the chat as a way to honor them if you feel so moved. The chat at the bottom of the screen. Thank you. As we begin our contemplative time, I invite us to take a moment to hold in our hearts the pressing problems of the day, too numerous to mention. However, we can rejoice as well for the resistance in Minneapolis, the model that those people have provided for all of us. And we can also rejoice in the solidarity of many countries around the world against the US possible takeover of Greenland, especially the solidarity of some of the European communities, I think has been heartening to all of us. These are among the things for which we can silently offer thanks, despite the fact that our hearts are filled with the violence and hatred that surrounds us. We make room in those hearts through this expression of rejoicing. Thank you. I'd like to remind us and inform those who may be new tonight of the format that we follow for our meditation. We have a short presentation, and then I ring a gong that starts a 22-minute period of shared silence. At the end of that time, I ring the gong again and open the floor for any who wish to add their reflections to the mix. No one is required to say a word, but if you'd like to add your reflection, you're welcome to do so. I ask you now to mute your audio until it's time to share, which will be after Rosemary Ganley makes her presentation and after we have our meditation. I have introduced Rosemary Ganley enough times that my introductions could form a collection like the collections of her essays. But for tonight, I simply want to rehearse the basics and add one comment about Rosemary Ganley. Our own RBG, as I like to think of her, is a stalwart Canadian whose politics and theology are consistent and coherent. Her writing persuades those who are open. She uses careful arguments, solid thinking, and enough humor to make it happen. Rosemary Ganley is a teacher at heart, so her regular columns in the Peterborough Examiner are as educational as they are well written. She's a longtime Catholic feminist, a citizen of the world via her deep insertions into the Jamaican and Tanzanian cultures, but a Canadian at heart and a hockey fan. There is much more, of course, but I'll only add that if we could only clone Rosemary Ganley and send her around the world, we could settle most of the problems that befall us. I'm firmly convicted of that, Rosemary.
Wow.
Tonight, she'll offer a springboard for contemplation through brief remarks on the grace of endings. As an octogenarian, Rosemary has strong feelings, and I share them, about world politics. And she has realistic and honest views about end-of-life issues, which I also share. She will explain meaningfully as always. Welcome, Rosemary, and we are in your capable hands and your very capable heart. Thank you.
Among my sisters, and happy to be with you, and reassured by the success of Virginia's contemplation on buttons. So I will proceed with my topic. In case you have been brought here under false pretenses, the topic I describe is the grace of endings. And I feel that strongly, maybe because I'm 89 and grateful, but I have acquired some planning for my own personal end, and it has been very reassuring and peaceful for me. It's endowed me with, and my clan with some peace. And I think that you may have come tonight to talk about the end of MAGA, of the MAGA regime. We have a Canadian commentator on CBC who has a time to the day for the end of this regime. And he announces it every day. I can't recall, because that's being 89, how many days it is, but you can hear it daily and maybe mark it off like an Advent calendar. But I am going to share my planning for my own ending and the peace it's given me. First of all, and this is very practical. It's almost as practical as buttons. It takes a certain courage because we live in a death-defying culture. We live in a culture that's addicted to progress, so-called, and therefore we're uneasy about planning our death. Maybe the religious sisters among us have made more progress on that. Thanks, and share. But in my life, I've experienced death, my parents, my spouse 13 years ago, and the most painful of all was the death of my daughter at age 3.5 of a sudden infection many years ago. Now, telling that story made bonds with women from the global south, all of whom had lost a child to death. And in Jamaica and in Tanzania, women would surround me with comfort, scriptural comfort, singing comfort. And there was a familiarity with death and a comfort level. And in Canada, we have access to medically assisted death. from coast to coast. We call it MAID, M-A-I-D. And I have been present at MAID deaths. There are guardrails, of course, and assessors. But but we're working right now for an extension of the permissions for MAID to include prior consent, especially if as I am a family of dementia, it's something to be considered. Of course, that's a controversial topic, even here, but it is law. And 13 years after my husband's service, people are still talking about it because we took our faith in our hands and we had a feminist liturgy. And our friends who were sorrowing, 6 women undertook to bake breads, and they, in honor of John's internationalism, they baked naan and bannock and pita and sourdough and gluten-free, and everybody in the hall was invited to partake. And the women stood with their baskets of homemade bread, and people were chatting with each other on the way up and saying, "Can we have some of each?" But what I have done and I would like to repeat that and have left advice to that extent. I have a will. I have a son who's on my bank account because bank accounts get frozen on death. I remember at the time of my husband's death, I needed 17 certificates of death for all the bureaucracies, pension and credit cards. This is kind of a heads up on what you'll be required. Oh, I've asked presiders. Otherwise, it maybe doesn't matter because you're not there, but it mattered to me to make a statement with the service I planned. And I've asked 2 presiders. One is a Roman Catholic sister of St. Joseph, a close friend, and one is a United Church of Canada minister. And they know each other and they're pleased to accept the invitation to preside. And I would like scripture and from the Christian Gospels and from the Hebrew scripture and from Rumi. I came across, that's Muslim. I came across Rumi the other day, and he said, this is something that could go on your fridge. He said, in times like these, be a lamp or a lifeboat or a ladder. Isn't that beautiful? And then I've asked Mary to put this in the follow-up notes. I have grandchildren, and they're often grandchildren at services. So this little book came to me, and it's called Explaining Death to Young Children, Water Bugs and Dragonflies. It's about a water bug who climbs up a stalk and flies off, and he can't return to his community because he's in a different dimension. And it's a lovely little book published, and you'll be able to find it. And then I'd like Jamaican music. And I have a granddaughter who's a serious dancer. She's 16. I'd like liturgical dance. And so just I've let my imagination soar and looked after some practicalities. Oh, I went, the payment, the money. I've started to pay for my service at $250 a month for 3 years. That includes coffee and cookies. And some of you are global travelers. Now, if you want your remains repatriated, it's very costly because there's bureaucracies of all kinds. And there's an insurance policy for lifelong, one time, for repatriation of remains of $500 for the insurance policy. And otherwise, I fly to BC to visit family, and it's $8,000 to get me home. Oh, and in the funeral industry, there's now, in addition to cremation, which is more ecological than the other, there's aquamation. Have you heard of that? Yes. Okay. We have it in Peterborough, Ontario. It's a more ecological way of reducing the human body to ashes. Aquamation. I think that I hope that this gives you food for thought, but I want to reiterate that the planning I've done with a sense of humor is a comfort to my successors. I mean, I have 3 sons, 3 daughters-in-law would have to come to town, deal with all my belongings. And I don't want them to have an indignant feeling towards me. So I'm looking after things beforehand. And then you can set it aside and live fully these years. So, Mary, have I gone on long enough?
Rosemary, you have given us a glimpse into something that we all need to look at in a very serious way. And I want to use you as my role model to do it, as you said, for the comfort of my successors in a planned way and with humor. And so I think that's just a wonderful way to move into our meditation. We might ask ourselves how we might envision this for ourselves and what it is that we might do about it, or how we might help others to do something. I'll leave that to the boundless imaginations and meditative practices of those gathered. Rosemary, thank you, thank you, thank you. The gong, and we will have an opportunity to move into meditation for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back for a time of conversation for anyone who wishes to speak. Thank you, Rosemary Burns Ganley. Welcome back, and thank you again to Rosemary Ganley for a memorable presentation. I mean, if the buttons stuck in our minds and hearts, where is this one? This is really something, I think, an enormous gift to us, Rosemary, to bring death to our doors, as it were, with planning and with good humor, and then to get on with the rest of living. That's what I took away from what you said, to have that comfort for yourself and for those who follow you, and then to get on with your living. And I can only say personally that I hope, all your good planning notwithstanding, that it doesn't get implemented anytime soon. if you get my point. It was important, Rosemary. Thank you. We turn now to conversation. The floor is open. I invite you to use the raise hands button at the bottom under the react sign and raise your hand as I have just done, and it will move you to the top of the queue, at least on my screen. And then when you're finished, put your hand down, and you might just name yourself and mention where you're from. We know most of us know one another, but not all of us. And new people are always more than welcome here. So the floor is open for whatever reflections you might want to share based on what Rosemary presented to us or something else that might have emerged for you in your own meditation this evening. Again, with the deepest thanks to Rosemary. The floor is open. Mary Jelinek, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Thanks, Mary, and thank you, Rosemary. Another gift you've given us. I agree with Mary. It's something I'll never forget. And there are so many things you said that made me laugh and cry at the same time inside. I'll never forget what you said. Um, One thing I read in an article this week, and I don't know if it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, was something else someone had done when planning for death. This fellow had asked his daughter to put together a postcard with his picture on it. And he wrote on the postcard, I'm dead, and you're receiving this card because you are important to me. And I think that's really also a lovely thing to do, to think about the people who are going to get word of this and not be able to participate in the ceremony of death, but know that the person was thinking about them. And it gives, just like hearing you tonight, Rosemary, it frankly gives me a lot of strength for, if something were to happen to you, I'll never forget this conversation, which is helpful. But also getting the cards from him, I thought was a beautiful thing. So thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Yes, Bernadette? No? Oh, wait, you know what? It's my, I'm sorry, my bad.
I do have a practical question, a concrete question. Rosemary, I'm not familiar with the non-cremation, the other alternative. Did you call it acclimation?
Aquamation. Aqua, like water.
Aquamation? Could you?
Yes.
Well, aqua as in water?
Yes.
Could you say a few words about that, please?
Yeah, it's a process where the body is immersed in water and reduced to a dust without the burning. And that it's more environmental, and it also appeals to me just imaginatively. I just wanted to mention that Jesuit spirituality has affected my life. And the Jesuit, St. Ignatius was a gifted spiritual director, and he directed the Jesuits to start every retreat or day of reflection with a meditation on death. Not to stay there, but that's how the retreat was to begin. And so it kind of, you get used to it and get more comfortable. That's my experience.
I'd like to comment on that later, Rosemary, but go ahead, Beth.
Hi, I've done most of all the things that Rosemary has talked about,
Yeah.
but I'm really stuck on writing my obituary,
Right.
and I need some motivation for that. I also wondered about, you didn't talk about natural burial or green burial. Like I'm all set to have my body wrapped in cotton
Yeah.
natural fibers and put in the ground just like that.
Mhm.
So I could go back to give the minerals and the nourishment of my body back to the ground where it came from. So
Right.
yeah, what about the obituary? What would motivate me? Rosemary, do you
I,
have some ideas?
well, I'd say don't be too hard on yourself. I think we were trained in scrupulosity. I see that as a difficulty with a lot of older Christians, Christian Catholics. And I think I'd be proud and mention things that you're proud of.
Hmm.
And we don't have in my area a cemetery with provision for these natural burials. There's one 40 miles away. But I think that's a desirable thing too.
Beth, I hope that gives you motivation. And again, don't rush, but yeah,
Yeah.
do a draft and put it away, and you can always come back to it. Carrie, how about you? And then Jean.
Thank you very much. And I've been harping on green burials because I'm in Florida, and so we don't have frozen ground. We have more access to that. Um, for my clinical pastoral education research project back in 2010, there's a huge undercurrent of green cemeteries and green burials, but we have to understand there's a huge industry uh, that we have to recognize that started during the Civil War because they wanted to get people wanted to see their young boys up north when they died down in the south. And so, that's a big industry that we have to understand we need to infiltrate if we're going to choose a green burial. I'm just talking about the big corporate thing
Right.
that we're up against here
Okay.
in the United States. But thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Carrie.
I mean, that's our last word about caring for the earth,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jean Christensen and then Elise DeGoyer.
Yeah, just a couple of things. In answer to why to write your obituary. I'm a sister of mercy, and I live in Nebraska where we can't do green burial either. But to do an obituary, the sisters tend to they tend to turn somebody into a saint. And you go, wait a minute, who are you talking about? And then But secondly, the other good part about it is we often learn things about our sisters that we did not know
Yeah.
because somebody who did know that person wrote the obituary. So if you can find somebody to write it for you, especially if you get to read it before, that's also helpful. But I had to smile tonight, Rosemary. I spent 3 hours Saturday morning and another 3 this morning because we get to update our files on a regular basis.
Oh,
And again, sisters are in a little bit different spot.
yeah.
But things like, do your people know how to access your computer, your iPhone, your iPad? What are your passwords? That kind of stuff. Who do you want helping? Because a lot of times the people you choose are no longer available for one reason or another. Who do you want? I listed with phone numbers and emails for people that I hope they would contact. And again, it's, where do they live? Who are they? How do you contact them? Most of my family, they aren't where I am. They're in Texas mostly. long shot from Nebraska. But just all sorts of pieces of info. We also have durable power of attorneys that we have identified. They've agreed to do that. And their response was one that Mary was saying to you, or somebody did. Hopefully we don't need to use that anytime soon. But, you have a few years on me, but not a whole lot. So, I mean, there's just tons and tons of things. That's enough.
Thanks, Jean. All very practical too. Notice how
Yeah.
practical we are, women. We're
After,
practical, and then we get on and do enjoy it. I mean, but the
yeah,
practicality, not expecting that someone else will just clean up after us. I think that's another
Yeah.
piece of it that's really important, Rosemary, that you've underscored, that you're doing your own work. How lucky your heirs are, really, how lucky.
well, and any of us who've had that experience don't want to have to leave it for somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is this form something that you could send so Mary could make available to all of us? Because I think the forms that somebody like you have access to can be really invaluable for the rest of us.
Are you talking about the advanced directives?
No, I'm talking about how to remember passwords, phone number, emails. There must be
Just
a
make them
list
up.
there must be a list that they gave you.
Not
Not
exactly.
really. Okay.
All right.
Some of
Well,
us are
whatever
more-
you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank
the
you.
problem is we've all been there to do that. I had to do it, a lot of it for my friend Pat, and we've done it with our sisters. And you're sitting there with the phone where they have all their family member contact and they don't do it in paper anymore, but you don't know how to get in the phone. Now we can shoot to iTech at the Institute office, but how do we make it easy? But yeah, I can make a list of what I have and I'll shoot it out to Mary.
Great. Great. Thanks, Jean. Thanks, Diane. Elise DeGoyer, great to see you. And please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm calling from Seattle as the sun's setting. Um, and I was drawn to this because of the theme of endings, but I didn't really know what to expect. So, but drawn because I have just gone through endings with a career that I'm still trying to figure out, and walking with my 98-year-old mother towards her death through the past year and making assumptions, based on the listening I had done of what she would want and being power of attorney based on assumptions, and feeling pretty good about that. But what I realize is, I've written a lot of obituaries this year. It seemed like people just didn't know where to start, and that was something that I felt I could do for them. So that was so in tending to other people's endings, I think it's um, helping me think about my own, of course, but also what you said, Rosemary, about and then freeing yourself for the living. The Rumi quote is what will stay with me, and I just had to reflect during my time that I've often think I've tried to be a lamp, a steady presence. Um, I've often been lightning, flashing on what hasn't been thought of, and at some cost, sometimes to relationships. But the latter, I love that. And to now in this phase of my life, think of the steps to create for others and for my family, for myself, for my community. So thank you for those thoughts.
Thank you, Elise, and all good wishes. It's wonderful to see you. And I guess one also has to say congratulations to the Seattle
Yeah.
Seahawks for their victory last night in the Super Bowl.
And a reminder that Elise was a Rosemary Ganley awardee.
Well, that's why I wanted to come and hear her wisdom spoken as well as written. So thank you.
Yes, the Rosemary Ganley essay contest, which Water has organized over the last couple of years, and I have the file actually right handy for 2026. So we are going to have one more. So get your pens up and rev up those computers. Susan Roll, let's go to you, and then we'll go back to Beth, and then that's going to be what we have time for at this point.
Oh,
And then we'll continue. People are welcome to stay as long as you want, but I'm going to close us at 8:30 just in deference to our usual commitment to one another. Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. I have a brother who's 7 years younger, and some years ago, he and I decided that each of us would write our own obituary, choose a nice photograph, and then we'd send it to each other in electronic form so that if he dies first, I can put his picture and obituary in the local Buffalo News, assuming the Buffalo News is still being published. I actually wrote two obituaries, one for the Buffalo News and one for the Ottawa Citizen. The Ottawa Citizen is going to, that one's put a little more emphasis on all the wonderful things I did to get into good trouble when I lived in Canada. But in addition to that, I started making a list of every organization and one person out of a group or a circle of friends who should be notified when I die. And the list became very, very long. And on the one hand, I felt like, oh, I hate to put this burden on anybody else to start madly emailing all over the world. And then I looked at the list again and realized how blessed I was to know so many people, have so many networks and connections.
yeah,
And I hope I've been a blessing to them.
yeah.
Thanks.
Amen. Amen to that.
Yes, I don't think there's no question on that front. I'm a happy reader a weekly reader actually of Susan's wonderful commentaries on scripture. And I must say I'm not a scripture person, but I read them as it were religiously. Beth, go ahead.
This is just a practical thing that you may not think of. A friend of mine died in this past April, and quite unexpectedly. And we did manage, and I knew the combination to get into her phone. And it took four of us, probably 4 days, to call 679 contacts
Oh, my
that she had
goodness.
in her phone. And some of them were no good anymore, of course. So
Yeah.
clean out your phone contacts and do it again in another year or two
Yeah.
to save your heirs from having to look through and see who needs to be contacted about your death.
Thanks, Beth. Again, the practicality really appeals to me. That, Rosemary, I do have some problems sometimes in the spiritualities that begin with death, because they tend sometimes to be rather ethereal, whereas there was no pussyfooting around this tonight. I mean, this sobered all of us in a very important way. I just think people need to cut to the chase here, as you have done in the 10 minutes that you spoke. You cut right to the chase. And you saved us a lot of time. We don't have to spend the morning now meditating on our deaths. We are right there. We're right there with you. And I just want to lift that up as something that I found very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you. And something you could teach the Jesuits. It'd save a lot of time if they would stop pussyfooting around these things and spiritualizing them and embellishing them and just this is it. And something like this is a very practical exercise that every person, regardless of their spirituality, their background, every person can engage in. So I just can't thank you enough. I think it was just great. Anybody like to offer further reflection or
Yeah.
go ahead?
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, Carol, just for that. Go ahead.
I'd like to thank you, Rosemary. There was a lot of things that you brought to mind for me. My husband and I are right now in the process of thinking about, how to plan our funerals. And on the humorous side, I was thinking about now, every time I go to church and I listen to hymns, I wonder, is that one that I want them to play? That might be good, like Enter, Rejoice, and Come In, or something like that. How to liven this place up kind of thing. But it's also
one of the things that it made me think of, and I'm not sure why, is figuring out what I need to plan and what I don't need to be in control of since I'm going to be dead. And other people have, wishes that you're close to in planning these things, and they might not be exactly what I'd want. So I have to decide what it is that I want to especially keep versus what I can give up to let others decide for me. So it's been very helpful to me, Rosemary, and I thank you very much.
Thanks.
One of the things I did with that was naming people who could do specific pieces. Like, here are 3 or 4 choices for who would greet from the altar, who would do the eulogy, and so on. So giving up control and yet in another way having some control over it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I just want to say there's so many approaches to death. There's sudden deaths, and that means that your plans were useful. But there's lingering deaths, a lot of cancer death, and there are books about community and strengthening community and bringing them in. And I remember when John got his diagnosis, it was terminal, it was pancreatic. And our friends had a gathering to volunteer to shovel snow or get groceries. But it was an awkward at the start, but it was so loving. And I remember he was feeling fine, and he walked into the room and he said, "Is this the bridal shower?" And everybody relaxed. And they wrote little notes. It was a structure to the meeting. Wrote little notes about what they could do.
Thank you.
Walk the dog or get groceries or have a person over or lend a book or so it comforted all of the people, and he had a lot of friends and people who loved him. It was he had done years of Jamaica work here in this all-white town. And he had taken students to Jamaica, and so it was some people want a private, but others are comfortable with bringing the whole community in, and that. Oh, and then there was another event that was on our back deck. I remember a priest introduced it, and it was another way of engaging people. And the priest mentioned John's head, ears, mouth, nose, genitals. I couldn't believe it. But people then said, "Oh, John always planned ahead." You know, when we were on the head, he always had a plan. And John always spoke kindly. And so John was there listening to this. And it was a lot, very comforting. And then when we got to genitals, I thought, what will our friends say now? And our friends are very sophisticated, and they talked about fatherhood and grandfatherhood. So we got through that. But that was another communal occasion that prepared me and all of us. And it was a favor to him. But those are kind of unique to his illness and his decline. But let others in if you can.
You know,
Saying that, Rosemary, reminds me that that none of these plans that we make, and Jean, your comments reminded me of this as well. None of these are set in stone. They can always be changed. I had an aunt. She wasn't a blood relative, but she was considered our aunt, and she lived to a rather ripe old age. And it was a standing joke in the family that she had a call planned with her lawyer every Monday morning, depending on whom she had seen over the weekend, to make codicils to her will. And uh, and so she was what gave me the notion that it's not over till it's over, that you can always make changes in your plans. And that's really that kind of flexibility. She lasted to 102, I might add. Um, and her will was quite a document to read. And she left, money and jewelry and all kinds of things to various people that she still had at 102, which I thought was rather astonishing by itself. But she was of the Irish, not unlike yourself, of the Irish persuasion, and so she knew that these things were something to put on the table, and this was something that she could be comfortable and made her comfortable and made other people comfortable, that she was thinking in an ongoing way about her life, and I appreciated that.
Well, and sometimes you do it on the spot.
Yeah.
We had a sister who was supposed to do the eulogy, had it written, and then became critically ill. She was not the one who died, but who's going to do the eulogy? I mean, you go to the front and you say, well, I'm not Sister Johanna, and everybody laughs because we didn't look alike. You just, the whoever is there gets it. They understand. They're very, at least in most of our cases, very accepting of whatever is happening. You do what needs to be done at the moment, generally speaking.
There's also the issue of what you're going to give ahead of time versus what you're going to leave people. You made me think of that, Mary, when you were talking about your aunt. And I've started to think about what I have from like my grandmother and my great-grandmother, that I really, if I do it right, in my mind, I should give it while I'm alive. But there's a part of me that wants to hold on. So those are some of the things that, you have to kind of sift through and decide how to deal with those things.
That's a huge challenge. I have several things that would not be what you would send to Goodwill. My mother's favorite Royal Dalton, a couple pieces of Hummel, that kind of stuff. So I took pictures of all of them and then put the little Provence below the picture. I just sent them. I sent it to my brother. I knew what his answer was going to be. To my niece and to my nephew. Anybody want any? Do you or any of your kids want this? Well, my brother's immediate response was, no, thanks. I have my own to deal with. My niece and nephew haven't responded. Pretty much we know they don't want it. So then it becomes a question of how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
So, we have a gentleman who works part-time in our central office, and he and his wife they do vintage and antique, but we're going to talk to him about how do you best deal with these things that are neither of those two. It's a serious question.
Good point.
And you don't want to live in
and Virginia Day.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm wondering during this time when so many people are polarized, families are being more and more polarized because of Trump. And I've heard many people say, well, I'm never going to leave so-and-so anything now because of what I've heard them say. I think people are really, we have to take a close look at how we're going to structure things now when we're in a state of anger or exclusion, and really, make conscious choices about, are we going to let our death documents hurt someone down the road, perhaps unnecessarily, even though we feel good doing it now. I think it's a very important element of planning when so many families now are split by politics.
That's a hard one, Mary, but thanks for bringing it up. Yeah. Yeah. Virginia?
Oh, thank you. Like you, Mary, I was so moved by the very end, set the worry aside and live fully. And what I need to set aside is, I think, my own worry about offending, not including, but set it up now so that I can go on and live fully. My difficulty is, and today was so helpful, I've been trying to do the planning. I just had a birthday this week, February 5th. So I'm not quite where you are, Rosemary, but I'm in the 80s. But I have, half siblings, because of divorce and remarriage. So, how to honor those siblings who have not been close through the years, but we are blood. We do share DNA. So, I'm in the process of just inclusion in whatever resources I have, and hopefully it won't be judged. I want to be generous. But I loved that, I'm going to finish this anxiety, this work that I'm trying to put on paper. And also the wonderful universities that have the schools, the Sisters of Notre Dame, all of those who have formed me, how I remember them, and let the relatives deal with with the remains. But I loved that. So I am going to finish this work, and then I'm going to set it aside and live fully. So I do thank you, though I'm partially there. But please God, I'll have something left. That's what I worry about. But even if they get their 10% but I want to show gratitude for all that has been mine. And I mentioned the schools only because they provided a wonderful life for me, and certainly the Sisters of Notre Dame. So it may be judged by my by my heirs, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to set it aside and live fully. So I thank you for that.
Thank you for letting me be here. I have to go. So I want to
Yes,
thank you all.
Thank you. Thank
getting
you.
to be Rachel Maddow time.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That's my clue to go to bed. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you were here, Carol, and everyone. Anybody last comment that you won't sleep well without making? Rosemary, we are in your debt, really, really deeply in your debt. And I know I speak for everybody in saying it, because it was just a great evening. And Virginia, I'm gonna be with you. I literally have the draft wills. We've already met with the lawyers and so forth. So it's and of course having a child makes a difference, a major difference. But it's something one has to do. It doesn't matter what it is, one has to do it. And as Rosemary has said, we have to do it and set it aside and feel good about it and get on with things. That's the takeaway. One of the takeaways tonight, Rosemary. Really, thank you.
Let's do it. And then
Really great. It's a gift to yourself too, isn't it? That you've given yourself to really do this and to feel good about it. And God knows you're living fully. So I heard you were at I heard from somebody up in Peterborough that she said, "Oh, I saw Rosemary Ganley last week. We were kind of in this hippie cafe with all the radicals and so forth." I thought, well, now I believe that. So Yeah, Pat Ramey, how she tell about it, but she was happy to see you last week. But the hippie cafe, Rosemary, that was I can't imagine you. Huh. Did you have fun? You have to
Yeah, me and what's that entertainer that was at the Super Bowl? What?
Bad
Bad
Bunny?
Bunny.
Bad
Bad
Bunny.
Bunny. Oh my gosh. I
Was
don't
something, wasn't he?
know.
Yeah,
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 that was fun.
that was. Yeah.
And Mary, you speak Spanish, so you're all right.
Well, yes, I do. In fact, this afternoon I was on with a wonderful group of women from all this new 900-page anthology I was mentioning to Rosemary and Feminist Theology that has just come out, 900 pages. And I was the kind of the person who was invited to speak about it in sort of general terms at this book thing, blah blah. Anyway, so my Spanish is relatively decent, but I really I'm not up to hip hop Spanish. I'm waiting for the transcript so that I really understand what went on. I have to be
Yeah,
honest.
that
So
was
if you
hip
didn't
hop.
catch it, don't, but you got the images, huh? The bananas and the fields and the marriage and the little boy and that you didn't need Spanish for any of that. Yes. One for the ages, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
didn't offend, I mean, didn't single out and name in a horrible way people who could be well named in a horrible way. That's brilliant. Sort of morally brilliant in that sense. All right.
Thank
Oh,
you
good night,
all.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you
Great.
so
Great to
much,
see y'all. Take good
Rosemary.
care. Be
Yeah.
well. Resist.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Resist.
Rosemary.
Yeah.
Yeah.